Right, welcome back. I've now decided to start work on the body shell of the Lancer as explained in step 11. So basically, you've got the side skirts, the front bumper and the rear bumper. Now the main body itself was in a bag by itself, on its own, where the other parts, their sprues I'd painted in the primer, as you already know in previous updates. So I started with the side skirts, which is A10 and A11 respectively. Now on the bottom of the body shell there's an L-shaped lip which points outwards. So what I did is I ran the glue all the way down the L-shaped lip. There's a couple of C sections been cut out already to house those mounting tabs there. So I then lined up the side skirts, taking special note of where they line up to the fender, front and rear, line them up, and I found they slotted in really well, so I didn't have to tape them down or clamp them down or anything. So I just glued those in, let the power of gravity sort those out while the glue dried. Then I went on to the rear bumper, which is A8. Again, the L-shaped lip all the way around, and there's a couple of mounting tabs on the bottom of the body shell that lock into the bumper itself. So I like I said, I went round with my glue around that L-shaped lip, and then put the rear bumper on. Again, taking special note of where it lines up to the fender, making sure that's lined up perfect. And then what I did to glue that down, to hold it down, I just got my normal household electrical tape that I mainly use for masking, and then I just went round the front here, one in the corner, one in the corner, and then one round the fender well, and then just went from the inside right through to the outside, pulling as tight as I fairly could, and then sticking that down. Let that dry. Then I went on to the front bumper, which, as you know, is A12. But the only trouble is there was a gap here and a massive gap here, and I thought, what am I missing? Then I went on to step 11, as I was, and I realised I had to glue in the X11, sorry, not X11, B20 and B21 front headlamp housings. So I mounted them into the front bumper itself, again with that L-shaped lip, let those dry. Once those were dry, I could then glue the front bumper onto the main body. Again, with that L-shaped lip on the bottom of the main body, just ran the glue all the way around and underneath, and then again with the fenders, got my tape in the various spots that I did from inside to out, and that's glued on really nice. You can see it's blended in really well, and you can see the lamp housings. There's the one and there's the other. So I've took all the tape off, and this is dried an absolute treat. It's gone down really well. I thought I'd have to do a bit of filling, but I haven't had to do any filling at all. So now the body shell's done. The body shell is now ready for primer. Right, while I was waiting for the glue to dry on all the bumper and side skirt pieces for the main body, I decided to build the spoiler. As explained in part of step 13, now there's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parts to make this rear spoiler. You've got A14 and A15, which are the side parts of the wing. You've got A6, which is the top spoiler, A13, which is the middle spoiler, and the E1 and E7 to make up the bottom spoiler. So what I did with A14, I glued A6 in first, into the little pins there, into the little holes there. Let that glue get tacky after a couple of minutes. Then I glued in the middle spoiler, which is A13. And there's a little channel inside the side wing. Glued that in, let that get tacky for a few minutes. Once that had gone tacky, I then got A15, rinse and repeat, glued the holes into the pins into the holes there, and that little mounting notch into that cutout mounting tab there. And then once that put all together, it looked, you know, it was fully done, really nice. But then I had to glue in E7 into E1. Now E7 is a mounting, it's a two-part mounting. You glue that into the back of into the front of E1, and that forms one hell of a mounting tab that connects into the little hole, square hole in the bottom of A13. And then that houses the two mounting notches there that go into those two, go into those two holes on the back of the boot. So putting that down, you can see that, I don't know if you can see it, there's two lines there for the part of the mounting square that goes into the bottom of the middle spoiler. I don't know if you can, I don't know if I can get the light. You can probably just make it out there in the middle underneath. So I glued all that in together, put the ran the glue around the edge there of the bottom spoiler, and that is all complete. So basically what you do is you get them two little pins, whoops, and mount those two little pins into those two little holes there, and that sits on like that. So that's my rear spoiler done. I've now primered the body shell on the outside and on the inside. On the one fender well there, I've had to do a bit of sanding because there's some glue marks and they're quite rough, so I've had to do a bit of sanding there. You can see that I've worn away the primer there. That line there is a moulding mark that didn't show up when it was white, but now it's primer, it showed up, so I've took care of that. But generally, apart from that, it's not too bad. I've had a bit of a little line issue there that I've had to sand down a bit on the rear fender well on that side. It's not too bad on that side, to be honest. I've also decided to glue down the bonnet clips. So I had to drill a hole through the top of the bonnet, because it says there that's the positions of them, the parts of B32. And then just drilled the holes all the way through, widened them slightly with my circular file by twisting and twisting and twisting. And then I just got a drop of super glue on the end of a cocktail stick and just glued those down. And then those are in the white still. So, and I've done a bit of sanding work around the edges where the glue marks were. So, just got to retouch up a few bits with the primer where I'd sanded down. But so far, the body shell's looking really, really nice. Not bad at all. Right, welcome back. As you can see, I have spray painted the main body shell on top of the grey primer with my white spray paint. All the way round on the front bumper, around the other side, and on the rear bumper. I've also spray painted the inside as well. I've also done my masking for the white Marlboro triangle. So I've basically done it with my blue tape, pressed down with the back edge of my tweezers to get round the contours of the raised lipped parts, especially round the nose scoop. Unfortunately, the tape wouldn't go round the front part of the bonnet, so I've just used my white edging tape, you know, the curved tape. I then, once that's settled, I then got my Pledge Future and painted round the edges to try and seal that the best I can on the front Marlboro triangle. Moving to the rear bumper, I've done the same. Got my blue tape Pressed it down the best I can around the edges of the bumpers and all the raised parts. The top triangle there, when it goes onto that lip, was a bit difficult. It kept wanting to lift, but eventually I've got it to stick down. So that's going to be for my rear bumper white Marlboro triangle. And again with the Future, just gone round the edges and sealed those edges the best I can. So now it'll be, the next update will be, I'll be spray painting this in the red paint. Right, welcome back. I've now painted the body shell of the Lancer in the red. If you remember from the previous update, I'd spray painted it in the white on top of the grey primer, and I've masked off where I wanted my Marlboro triangles. So I spray painted on top of the white in Tamiya's TS49 bright red, as it says in the instructions. Spray painted the inside first. 2 coats. I went with the light base coat first, let that dry, and then did a secondary coat a couple of hours later. It's come down really well. It's come out really nice. Once that had dried, I then sprayed the outer body again with a nice light base coat, let that dry for a couple of hours, and then resprayed it again to give it this nice finish. Let that for a couple of hours to dry, and then I took the tape off where I'd done my Marlboro triangles. So on the bonnet, I had a touch of paint bleed, especially around these raised sections here, because I think the tape had lifted slightly, even though I'd gone around the edges with a Pledge Future. And to be honest, I don't know why, but when I took the tape off, it had dulled the white a little. So I touched up where the red was. That took a couple of coats, and then I just went a good once over with the MAP 34 white from Marlboro, and it looks a hell of a lot better than it did. So that's the bonnet done. Moving round to the rear bumper. Now I had a bit more paint bleed on the rear bumper, especially where the tape folds over this top edge of the bumper and the little raised sections on the front wall of the boot. So I touched up the edges with the 34 matte white, and again the tape had dulled the white a bit, so I just get it a once over. But that's not looking too bad now. I've also done the rear wing. From the previous update, I painted it in the primer. I spray painted that with a white, and then I masked off a top wing on top and underneath. To be honest, the paint bleed weren't too bad. It was just mainly the edges here and here where it meets the red of the top of the wing. I've got to retouch that up. And underneath there, I don't know if you can make it out where I've touched it up with a white. Generally, the rear wings come out really well. That TS49 bright red has come out an absolute treat. Not bad at all.